Hey, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this picture of Sonic and draw him to make him look a little more three-dimensional. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and I'm going to draw an oval to form the basic shape of his head. Take my direct selection tool and adjust a couple of the anchor points by clicking on the anchor point and then dragging them into the position that I want them to be in. Right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this color blue. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my mesh tool. So the mesh tool should be located over here on the left. So we hover over it, it'll say mesh tool. Now with the mesh tool, what this does is it allows you to make anchor points across the surface of your shape. So anywhere you click, it's going to add an anchor point. So I'm going to add a few anchor points. One in the middle here where his forehead might be, and one on the left side where his cheek might be, and one on the right side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my direct selection tool and I'm going to select all these anchor points along the edge. So if you hold shift on your keyboard, you can select multiple anchor points. So hold shift and then you can grab all these anchor points along the edge of this shape. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm going to make the color a little bit darker. So what I'll do is I'll open up my swatches and I'll change that color to a darker shade of blue. So you can see already how his head is already starting to create, get a little more shape there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the spikes in his hair. So I'll just grab my ellipse tool again and I'm going to draw an ellipse across here, and I'll take my direct selection tool and I'm going to grab the sides of these anchor points and I'm going to convert them to a corner. Okay, so if your settings on the workspace is set to automation, you should be able to do that. So I'll grab the other anchor point on the opposite side, convert that to a corner, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull that down on both sides. And I'll grab the anchor point in the middle by the handles and pull those handles outwards a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this shape and I'll set that down here, and I'll use this maybe for the bottom as well. Okay, now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to throw some color in here. So I'll suck out that original blue color, and I'm going to take my mesh tool and I'm going to create a darker mesh here in the middle. So I'll go back to my swatches with my direct selection tool and we'll make that a little bit darker. And I'm going to grab the edges of this shape using my direct selection tool and holding shift while I click on all the individual anchor points. And we're going to make that a little darker along the sides there. Okay, I'll take my selection tool, bring this over, and then I'm going to go ahead and send that to the back. So while the shape is selected, I'll right click and go arrange, send to back. So I make that just a little bit bigger here. Stretch that out a little bit. Now what I'll do is I'm going to grab these anchor points. I'm going to pull this down a little bit more on both sides here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my mesh on this, and I'll just put an anchor point here in the center. I'll maybe make that one maybe a little bit lighter. And now I'm going to go ahead and send this shape to the back. So right click, arrange, send to back, and adjust the size of that a little bit. Now I'll go ahead and I'm going to make the ears. So to make the ear, I'm going to take my rectangle tool, I'm going to draw a rectangle, and then I'm going to take my delete anchor point tool, and I'm going to delete one of those anchor points so that I can make it a triangle. And I'll adjust this shape here a little bit. And I'm going to maybe convert this bottom corner to a smooth point. So I'll click on this bottom point with my anchor or my direct selection tool. I'm going to click on this bottom anchor point with my direct selection tool, and we're going to convert that to a smooth edge. That way we can round out that ear a little bit. I do the same thing on this other side, and then I curve that in a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe make a copy of this ear, and I'm going to place it right on top of the shape that's already there. So to do that, I'm going to hit select the shape and hit Control-C to copy, Control-F to paste. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click, go to Transform and Scale. And I'm going to scale this down about, we'll say, let's go 60%. Scale down 60%. Let me set this aside for a minute. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my mesh tool again, and I'm going to put an anchor point here in the center, and I'm going to make that a little bit darker there in the middle edge. And maybe on the top anchor point, I'll maybe make this a little bit lighter. So I'll grab these top two anchor points and throw in a lighter shade of blue to create a little bit of a highlight on that top edge. And maybe what I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to grab these bottom two anchor points and I'm going to make them a little bit darker. Alright, now I'll take this piece that I made a copy of, we're going to put that inside here, and I want to make this similar to that color. Then what I'll do is I'll take my mesh tool, and I'm going to throw an anchor point here near the bottom, and I'm going to color that a little bit lighter there. So I'll select these two parts of the ear with my selection tool. I'm going to go ahead and go to Object and Group those two pieces together. Then I'm going to make a copy of it by hitting Control-C, Control-V, and then I'm going to right click, go to Transform Reflect, and I'm going to reflect that vertically. Put that on the other side, we'll click OK. Then I'll kind of line this up here on the other side of his head so that both ears are in the approximate same place. Now, what I'll do is we're going to work on maybe creating some eyebrow shapes for him. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. I'm going to draw an oval shape. I'm going to rotate that shape a little bit. I'll grab my direct selection tool and pull that edge down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make these two shapes the color of the middle here. So take my eyedropper and suck out that color. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my mesh tool and I'm going to put an anchor point going across here. And then I'm going to take my direct selection tool and grab these anchor points in the middle there, and we're going to make those a little bit lighter. And I'll grab these ones underneath those, and we're going to make those a little bit darker. Let's stretch that over a little bit. So let's take my direct selection tool. I'm just going to kind of move the placement of a few of these anchor points to get them in the right shape there. Okay, what I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to delete that one, and I'm just going to make a copy of this one. So hit Control-C, Control-V, right click, Transform, Reflect, click OK. Set that over here on the other side. Now we'll go ahead and I'll make his eyes. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, I'm going to draw an oval, And I'm going to rotate that a little bit. Draw another oval. Let's rotate that the other way. And yeah, overlap those three shapes. Take my selection tool, grab those three shapes, take my pathfinder, unite them together, and go to these interior anchor points of this, and we're going to convert those to smooth edges so they're not so sharp. And I'm going to go ahead and delete those two crazy anchor points there on the bottom. Take my direct selection tool, pull this. Okay, now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to make this a light shade of gray. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to take my mesh tool and add a couple of highlighted areas in the eyes with white. So I'll take my direct selection tool, grab that anchor point, make it white, go over here, add this anchor point and make it white as well to give the eye a little more shape. And then we can go ahead and maybe create his eyes. So I'll make those green. I'll push this down so it fits the shape here using my direct selection tool. So I'm going to make this maybe a darker shade of green. I'm going to take my mesh tool and put the mesh there in the middle and make that a lighter shade of green. And then I'll grab my ellipse tool, make a little black dot there for his iris, and I'll take white. I'll draw a little oval there, make it white for a little reflection in the eye. So then I'm going to take my selection tool, I'm going to grab all three of these shapes by holding shift while I select all three, and then I'm going to right click and group them together, make a copy by hitting Control C, Control V, and then I'm going to go ahead and reflect this to the other side. So right click, transform, reflect, vertically click OK, line it up on this side just like we have over there. Maybe I'll move this highlight over here. So what I'll do is I'll take my direct selection tool, select that, and then just drag this here to the other side. Okay, now let's go ahead and make his muzzle. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and grab my ellipse tool. I'm going to draw an oval here, and then I'm going to take my add anchor point tool, and I'm going to add an anchor point here on the left, and then one on the right here on the opposite side. And then I'll take my direct selection tool and I'm going to pull those down to kind of make the shape of his muzzle here. So I'll just take those direct selection tool and make the necessary adjustments to mirror that shape. Pull that up over the eyes, and I'm going to go ahead and make it roughly that same color. So I'm going to take my mesh and I'm going to throw a little mesh here on the bottom in the middle there to create a lighter shade of this color. So I'll double click on this to get my color picker, make that a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to take my direct selection tool to grab these anchor points on the top. I might just pull this off to the side while I do that. Take my direct selection tool, hold shift and grab all the top anchor points. And then I'm going to make those a lighter shade. Alright, I'll go ahead and make his nose. So take my ellipse tool, I'm going to draw a little circle here. And I'll make that black. I'll take my mesh tool, throw a little mesh here on top and make that a lighter shade of gray, just to give his nose a little more shape. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll take my curve or my arc tool, and we'll make a little arc here that will become a smile. We'll make that black, and I'm going to increase the stroke size a little bit. Throw another little arc here to give his little smirk on his face. So I take my direct selection tool and just make a few little adjustments. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and make a few adjustments to the size of his head here so it better fits his face. And there we have it.